Well, I'm clear that I'm not understanding it. I mean, I feel like it's whatever you're saying to me is landing somewhere deep inside me, but the words I'm not.
We're going to get there because you're right on the brink of it. So you've been putting things incrementally, and by that we mean all of your life and even before you came into this body, into your vortex. So here's this vibrational reality that exists that you want to manifest. You just can't explain all the details of it. You can't explain the how and the where and the who. You can't explain the details of it, but the components of it are all there, and you want it, and the source within you knows that you want it. So what we want you to understand is that if you can hold yourself in a more nice to you attitude, in a more I'm a good person attitude, in a more I'm on the right track attitude, in a more worthy feeling attitude, if you can lighten up on yourself, ease up on the demands that you're making on yourself, and not try so hard to make everything just the way you think it should be, and trust that you've put it in there and it's been spun into a really good configuration that's going to please you. And then your singular intention is to relax and allow the revelation of that to surprise and delight you. Now you're really on the path for a delicious, wonderful life. So what are the components? You did choose. You visualized it into being. You more than visualized it into being. You banged it into being. In other words, you hammered it out of life. You defined what you want, and you defined it in lots of different experiences with lots of different exposure to lots of different circumstances and people. In other words, you carved out a really magnificent life experience for yourself that you are depriving yourself of, all of you are, because none of you are living up to the expectation that the source within you has about what's in your vortex. You're all depriving yourself of so much that could be there because you're not willing to relax in an attitude of I'm goodness and let what's in there flow into your experience. And that's why so many teachers are teaching you to meditate or to count your blessings or even to pray with an attitude of love. It really is about
gratitude.
It's about chilling. It's about acceptance. It's about all the things that you've been hearing, but we're wanting to put it into a law-based understanding so that you can understand when you're moving toward it and when you're moving away from it. Kate and Luke played a game with Jerry and Esther when the kids were very little, a hot and cold game where they'd hide something and then Jerry and Esther were to find it just by saying, it's hot, you're getting hotter, you're getting hotter, you're getting hotter. And every single time they would lead them to the button, every single time, because they knew where it was. And they were giving Jerry and Esther hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. There was no possibility that they weren't going to find it. There was no possibility that they weren't going to find it. And the same is true of every one of you. There's no possibility that you're not going to find it if you will accept that negative emotion means you're cold and moving away from it, and positive emotion means you're warmer, 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 warmer. This is the game. This is the emotional game that you're playing. And so if it's confusing, it's only because you're trying to introduce too much to the conversation all at once. Get more singular and specific in what you're asking about, and you'll feel it vividly, you see. If we were standing in your physical shoes and we were feeling some negative emotion on a pretty regular basis, we would start saying to ourselves, what am I thinking about? What's the common denominator that is at the heart of, it's a lot of different people and maybe even seemingly different subjects, but what's the common denominator? And what most of you will discover, it falls in a handful of categories. The common denominator is shortage of money, shortage of time, shortage of love for me. That's it. That's what you're feeling shortage about, most of you. And then you're using that person and the way they're responding to you as your example of pointing that out. And that person is your example of pointing that out. But of course, law of attraction's bringing them to you because that's the vibration that you've got going on, you see. So when you understand that it's a vibrational universe, now you can take money out of the equation. Money doesn't have anything to do with anything. Money is a byproduct of alignment, but you don't need money to buy alignment, and you can't buy alignment with money. So that sort of levels the playing field. We're all in this vibrational universe, and we are all afforded the same access to this vortex. We've all been living, we've all have a vortex that will keep us busy for 20 or 30 lifetimes. And we all have access to this energy. We just have to find a way to grant ourselves access. To grant ourselves access.
To allow.
To allow.
Is that what you're saying? To allow.
To allow.
So the question would be, how can I be in a position to allow, or how can I be in a thought or a place?
By caring about how you feel.
By caring about how you
and
feel.
moving away from the feelings that don't feel good toward the feelings that do. For example, so here's this really wonderful person, and everything about her is the way you want it to be, except that deal breaker.
Yes.
And that deal breaker just feels awful, because it feels like you have to give up something that's important to you in order to get something else that's important to you.
Yes.
So there's that knot. So you just got to talk that knot down. You just got to say, well, maybe it's not a deal breaker. Well, that didn't feel very good. Well, eventually I'll figure it out. Eventually I'll find someone who wants everything that I want. Or eventually I'll know what I want. Or eventually you just keep feeling around until the thought feels a little bit better to you. Mm. Maybe there's more for me to come to understand, and maybe that's what this is about. Maybe this will help me. And so it's a good thing. In other words, you just talk until you feel better. That really is what you do with anyone that you're trying to be of advantage to. You soothe them. Teachers don't seem to know that, and parents don't seem to know that, and lovers don't seem to know that, and psychiatrists don't seem to know that. Counselors sometimes don't seem to know that. But the way you help anyone is by soothing them. And so the way you help yourself is by soothing yourself. I'm doing all right. And I get to want what I want. And my desires are valid. And the universe will work it out for me so that I can have whatever I'm wanting. And I don't have to figure it all out this red hot minute. I don't have to decide it all today. And I don't have to make a commitment right now. I can continue to have fun. I can have meaningful relationships. What Esther has been discovering, because there were so many attributes that Jerry possessed that were so satisfying, and so she's been noticing that person has that attribute and that one has that, and so she's put together this collective consciousness of a lot of people in her life that are fulfilling that, you see. And that's not a bad way to go when you're in the process of creating the relationship that you want. You're picking the pieces of this and this and this and this. I really like that about that, and I really like that about that, and I really like that about that, and I really like that about that. I really like that about that. And before you know it, you've trained yourself into what you really like about that. Now, the universe has already spun all of the components that are important to you, already spun them all into the perfect manifestation. And now, because you like that about that, and that about that, and that about that, and that about that, and that about that, now you've trained your vibration into that vibrational alignment with that. And now what flows right into your grid in full view is the manifestation that satisfies you, you see. And when that happens, you don't miss it. You're not oblivious to it. You walk right into it with knowing. You walk right into it with knowing. You can feel you're on the trail. When you say something's a deal breaker, you are on the trail. You are way down the trail. You are way, 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 way down the trail before you find a deal breaker. Because it's not what you ask when you start out, is it? And why is that? Because you don't want to find the deal breaker. You don't want to find the deal breaker. If you could enter into every relationship determined that you will not find the deal breaker, I will find no flaws in you. I will find no flaws in you, because I don't want the deal breaker to show up before I've explored this completely. It's really a good way to approach. Helpful, we know it is.